What's going on, everybody? Let's Talk Jets Radio. Hope you guys are enjoying your playoff Sunday as the Bills lead the Broncos right now. 14 years in a row, Jets not a part of these playoff games, and it unfortunately doesn't seem like that playoff drought is going to be ending anytime soon with the announcement that Vrabel is going to be joining the Patriots now. And you just look around the AFC with Sean Payton joining the Broncos last year and how quickly he turned them around. 2 years ago, and then Harbaugh last year to the Chargers and how quickly he turned them around. It just seems like the AFC is just absolutely loaded right now with proven head coaches and quarterbacks that are all in their prime with, Lamar Jackson and Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen with an MVP type year. It just feels like the Jets are so far away from the goal of realistically competing for a Super Bowl. It's not to say they can't, be 500, they can't sneak into a wild card, but if you're talking about, going on a realistic playoff run, which is going to be going through all these teams, all these proven coaches and quarterbacks that have been building things for the last couple of years, it just seems like the Jets are so far away. And, the fact that they have these lists of, 13 plus GM candidates, 13 plus head coaching candidates, and they don't include Pete Carroll, they don't include Bill Belichick, they don't include John Gruden. Ben Johnson obviously doesn't want to come here. Vrabel, they interviewed, but he didn't want to come here. There's only so many candidates that could actually turn a franchise around. There's only so many proven guys out there, and even first-time guys, which, Ben Johnson's the top guy that's out there. You want to get excited about an Aaron Glenn. I can certainly understand that with how he relates to players, his background with Parcells and Sean Payton, even a Todd Monken, who had a great game plan last night with the Ravens. All these first-time head coaches coming into this environment with the losing streak, the media, a meddling owner, and you ultimately don't know how they handled the adjustment of going from a coordinator to head coach, what kind of staff they're going to bring along with them. There's just so many unknowns with a first-time head coach, on top of the fact that they're going to be competing against guys that are proven, that have done it for a number of years. It just feels like the Jets are legitimately so far away. And I don't want to be negative going into 2025, not just with football, but with life, trying to embrace positivity and just a new way of thinking. But, if we're having realistic conversations about this team, the direction of the team, and how quickly, things can ultimately turn around, when you're talking about interviewing so many guys that are kind of part of that second tier of head coaches. And again, it's not to say that you can't strike lightning and, maybe find somebody that's good. There are guys that have done it, like Kevin O'Connell and Dan Campbell. There's plenty of guys that, weren't necessarily viewed as, the top candidate of their cycle, yet they came in and they turned organizations around very quickly. So it's not to say that it can't be done, but I think certainly coming to the Jets, it requires a different level of leader that I'm not sure is necessarily out there. I believe in Aaron Glenn, but when you talk about everything that's around the Jets right now, including a meddling owner, which is the biggest problem, but also, just trying to figure out what kind of staff he's bringing along with him, and, all the different things that go into a coordinator making that first-time adjustment. I'm just not sure how we can really get excited until we see some results from whoever it is. So that's kind of where I'm at. It sucks to feel this way, like your team is so far away and there's really no light at the end of the tunnel. But, what makes it even worse, of course, is that we have no idea who the quarterback's going to be. You got all these teams that have young quarterbacks or quarterbacks that are in their prime, having MVP seasons, and, the Jets have no idea who their quarterback's going to be. And ultimately, if you make the decision to move on from Rodgers, you're probably losing Devontae Adams as well. Yeah, you're going to save a little bit of cap space, but you're not trying to build your team through free agency. You need building blocks and long-term answers. And I think that ultimately, when you lose Rodgers, when you lose Devontae Adams, I think there's a good chance that other guys are probably going to follow. New GM's going to want to stock up as many draft picks as possible. You could have guys that just simply want to trade out of here because they're tired of this losing environment. They want a fresh start somewhere else. They're not going to trust a new first-time head coach. But I think, if I have to, try to open up my mind to, somebody turning this team around, that's a realistic option. I'm leaning more towards Aaron Glenn being that guy. Just the more and more I listen to him, I think he's somebody that definitely relates to the players and would go above and beyond in trying to foster that culture that we need. Again, it's just the unknown of everything around him as far as his staff and the owner and everything else, just allowing him to be himself. And you hope that over time, this environment wouldn't change him, because I do feel like to an extent, we saw a different person with Robert Saleh when he was with the Niners, and then we saw somebody here that I don't know if it was just the Jets PR team putting all these talking points in his head, or if he was just overwhelmed by being the guy. But I think you could see a noticeable difference from the rah-rah, defensive coordinator that was in San Francisco to the head coach on the sidelines that often had a blank stare and rarely had answers when he talked to the media. So I don't want to see that happen to Aaron Glenn. I do think he's a different breed. His background as a player as well, the fact that he knows the Jets and everything like that, I think could allow him to succeed. It's just such an unknown coming here for a first-time head coach that it's very tough to embrace. On top of the fact that he's going up against the best, in the division and in the conference as well, with so many head coaches and quarterbacks that have been doing it for a while. So if I'm being realistic, I'm not too optimistic about the next year or two. But this hire is everything. You got to nail this hire, and the fact that the top proven CEO guys are not part of your interview list, it really makes you question a lot of things. So I'm going to try not to be negative. I'm open-minded with Glenn and Monken and some other guys that could be realistic options. But with any of these hires, with any of these first-time hires, it almost has to be a prove it and show it mindset before you start to really get excited about anything changing. So hope you guys are doing well, enjoying the playoffs, and we'll be back live tomorrow night talking Jets.